All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're wading into the wild world of New York City Council meeting minutes, specifically the session from September 12th, 2024.
That's right, because you know what they say, if you can make sense of New York City Council minutes, you can make sense of anything.
So true. But in all seriousness, we're talking about very recent history here. Decisions that directly impact the lives of millions of New Yorkers.
Absolutely, and let's not forget the ripple effect. These local decisions often have implications that reach far beyond the five boroughs, influencing national conversations and even shaping policies in other cities.
Exactly. So whether you're a policy wonk or just someone who wants to understand how their city really works, this deep dive is for you.
Right, because we're cutting through the jargon and getting straight to the heart of what went down on that day.
So let's set the scene. Picture this, the Grand Council Chamber, 51 council members, each representing a different district, all trying to make their voices heard.
51. Can you imagine the logistical feat of just getting everyone on the same page?
Talk about herding cats. And speaking of being present or absent, were there any notable no-shows at this particular meeting?
Well, Councilmember Hanks was absent and Councilmember Rivera was on parental leave.
Okay, so a couple of empty seats. Why did that matter?
Well, in a group this large, every vote carries weight.
Yeah.
Those absences could be strategic, maybe indicating alliances or perhaps even rifts within the council. It's like a political chess game.
Ooh, I like that analogy. A
Yeah.
political chess game. So we've got our players, we've got some strategic absences. What were the big ticket items on the agenda that day? What were the opening moves?
Well, like any good chess game, they had to get through some of the routine openings first. Approving minutes from the previous meeting, going through announcements, the usual procedural stuff.
Right, but I'm guessing things picked up pretty quickly.
You know it. Remember all that controversy surrounding the mayor's pick for Corporation Counsel, Randy Mastro?
Oh, yeah. Wasn't he a bit of a controversial figure from the get-go?
To say the least. And in this meeting, the mayor officially withdrew Mastro's nomination. But here's where it gets interesting. The council minutes include a mountain of documents, exhibit after exhibit, attached to this decision.
Oh, that's juicy. Sounds like someone was doing their homework. What kind of bombshells are we talking about here?
We can only speculate, but those exhibits could be anything from legal opinions to internal memos, maybe even a strongly worded letter from a concerned citizen or two. Unfortunately, the minutes themselves only give us a tiny peek into this treasure trove of information.
Okay, now you're just teasing me.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what deep dives are all about, right? Uncovering those hidden layers and making our listeners crave more. So besides the Corporation Council drama, what other juicy tidbits did you unearth? All right, spill it. What other gems did you dig up from this meeting?
Well, let's just say the council got down to street level, literally. We're talking about land use, specifically reviewing decisions made by the City Planning Commission and the Department of Transportation.
Ah, land use in New York. Always a hot topic.
You said it. And this meeting was no exception. One example. Remember that little cafe, Seis Vecinos, the one on the Upper West Side with the amazing patio?
Best sangria in town. What about it?
Well, turns out even something as seemingly simple as their sidewalk cafe required council approval.
Really? You're telling me those cute string lights needed a whole council vote?
Hey, don't underestimate the politics of outdoor dining. Seriously, though, these kinds of seemingly small-scale decisions often reflect much broader issues.
Like what? Give me the deep dive.
Well, for starters, you've got noise complaints from residents, concerns about competition between businesses, and, of course, the ever-present issue of accessibility. Sidewalk cafes, believe it or not, can be pretty controversial.
Wow, who knew? You think that's why it's such a contentious issue in so many cities? Trying to balance the needs of businesses with the quality of life for people who live there.
Exactly. And speaking of balancing acts, the council also tackled the rezoning of 135th Street in this meeting.
Now, that's not your average sidewalk cafe debate. We're talking some serious urban planning here.
Right. Rezoning impacts everything from housing density to traffic flow, even the types of businesses that are allowed to operate in an area.
I bet the discussions got pretty heated.
Hmm.
So we've got sidewalk showdowns and rezoning battles, but this is the New York City Council we're talking about, so I'm guessing land use was just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, absolutely. They also waded into a whole bunch of legislation, things like addressing the legacy of slavery in the city.
Whoa. That's heavy stuff. How did that even come up?
Two introductions. In? No. 242A and in 279A both address this very complex and emotionally charged issue.
Did those introductions get the attention they deserved?
It's interesting, both were approved, but not without some dissenting votes, which I think really highlights the sensitivity surrounding these
It
topics.
shows how important it is to have those discussions, even, or maybe especially, when they're difficult. So what did these introductions actually propose?
Well, IntNet 242A called for a truth, healing, and reconciliation process, while 249A proposed a study on the lasting impacts of slavery and recommendations for reparations.
It really makes you think about how the past continues to shape the present, even in a city as forward-thinking as New York. Okay, so we've got land use battles, attempts at historical reckoning.
Yeah.
What else did these council members have on their plates that day?
Well, how about something near and dear to every New Yorker's heart? The streets themselves. Specifically, those medians you see dividing roadways. No, 746A was all about sprucing those up.
You mean those concrete islands that sprout the occasional weed, not exactly the high line.
Hey, some might call it urban resilience. But you're right, they often get neglected. This introduction aimed to change that by adding more vegetation and improving stormwater management, basically making those medians more visually appealing and environmentally friendly.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Was everyone on board with a little beautification?
You'd think so, right? But it wasn't unanimous. Even this seemingly simple proposal to add some greenery sparked debate.
Really? I'm so curious about what the objections could be. Maybe budgetary concerns or disagreements over the types of plants being considered?
Who knows, maybe someone really loved those scraggly weeds. But you're right, it just goes to show that even the most straightforward issues can have layers. That's what makes this stuff so interesting.
Totally. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Or concrete median, I guess. Anything else catch your eye in the legislative lineup?
There was one more that stood out, in Anthem 346A, which dealt with pedestrian rights and safety. This one, however, got tabled for a later date.
Tabled. Oh, man. That's like a cliffhanger in the middle of our civic drama.
Yeah.
Any hints as to why they postponed it?
Sadly, no. The minutes don't give a reason. Could be anything from procedural roadblocks to a need for further clarification, or even some serious opposition from certain council members.
Ugh, the suspense is killing me. I guess that's city government for you, never a dull moment. Okay, so we've got sidewalk standoffs, history lessons, and even a pedestrian cliffhanger. What other treasures await in the annals of these meeting minutes? So much for a relaxing stroll through City Hall, huh? We've got everything from sidewalk cafe drama to historical reckonings and even a pedestrian cliffhanger. But this is New York City, so what else did these council minutes dish up?
Well, we did dive into some serious urban planning and policy discussions, but New York City is also a bustling hub for business, right? And this meeting gave a glimpse into that, too.
Oh, intrigue me. What kind of business dealings are we talking about?
We're talking business improvement districts. You know those BIDEs you hear about sometimes?
Bides. Okay, refresh my memory. What's a BIDE again?
Right, because not everyone spends their days deciphering local government acronyms. Basically, BIDEs are these designated areas where local businesses team up and pool their resources to fund things like extra sanitation services, security, and even holiday decorations.
Wait, so those sparkly lights that make walking around the city so magical during the holidays, those are thanks to beads?
Often, yeah. And I'm sure there are some fascinating debates going on behind the scenes about those decorations too, but maybe that's a deep dive for another day.
Huh, noted. I'll add it to the list. But back to this meeting. What were the beads up to?
The council approved the creation of 2 new beads, one for Cypress Hills and Fulton, and another for changes to an existing one in the Queens Plaza Court Square area.
Ah, so some sprucing up for those neighborhoods. Everyone happy about this injection of local investment?
Almost. Remember, Council Member Yeager, our resident voice of dissent, he voted against both BIDEs.
That's right. He's on a roll with the objections in this meeting. Any clues as to what he was thinking this time?
Sadly, the minutes are silent on the specifics. We're left to speculate. Maybe concerns about how these BIDEs might impact existing small businesses, or perhaps a more fundamental disagreement with the whole BID model itself. Who knows?
Ugh, the mystery. It's like we have all these puzzle pieces, but we're missing a few key ones to really understand the full picture.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of these deep dives. We're not just laying out a boring timeline of events. We're inviting listeners to think critically about the whys behind those actions.
Love that. Speaking of critical thinking, what else did this meeting reveal about the inner workings of New York City?
Well, it also gave a little peek into the city's dedication to preserving its architectural history.
Oh, right, because New York isn't just skyscrapers and hustle and bustle. There's a lot of history woven into those streets.
So true. And this meeting saw the designation of 3 new landmarks. First up, the iconic Crown Building on Fifth Avenue.
The Crown Building. Talk about a landmark with some serious stories to tell.
Yeah.
Wasn't that home to the Museum of Modern Art at one point?
It was. It's housed everything from high-end shops to cultural institutions. It's a classic New York skyscraper. Then there's the atrium of the Beekman Hotel.
Oh, the Beak Man. Now that's a hidden gem if I've ever heard of one.
Right. It's like a 9-story architectural time capsule tucked away inside the hotel. It's got stunning ironwork, a beautiful skylight. You really feel transported back in time.
Okay, you've sold me. The Beekman is officially going on my must-see list. What was the third landmark?
The Frederick Douglass Memorial Park on Staten Island.
Now that one feels especially significant.
It really is. The park sits on what used to be Frederick Douglass's home, Cedar Hill. Designating this a landmark is about more than just preserving a physical space. It's about honoring his legacy, remembering his fight for social justice, and making sure that story continues to resonate.
It's a beautiful reminder that landmarks aren't just about pretty buildings. They're about the stories they hold and the values they represent. Wow, what a journey. We've gone from heated debates over sidewalk cafes to reflections on historical injustices to marveling at architectural gems, and all of this packed into a single New York City Council meeting.
And to think, this is just one meeting out of so many. There's a whole universe of information tucked away in those minutes.
That's right. So to all our listeners out there, we challenge you. Dive into the minutes yourselves. See what treasures you can unearth. Trust us, it's an adventure worth embarking on. Until next time, happy exploring.